Today on episode number 367 of the School of Podcasting's morning announcements, which you can find at schoolofpodcasting.367, it is chock full of information. We're going to talk a lot about media kits. What are they? How do you make them? Here are the tools. What are people looking for? I'm going to play you some of the worst audio I've ever heard. We got a great Because of My Podcast story. Actually, we have two. We have a Last 5 and 5 from Miss Ilene. We've got a horror story from Bill on free software to record Skype, and a whole lot more. Stay tuned. Here it comes. Hit it, ladies.
The School of Podcasting with Dave Jackson.
Podcasting since 2005. I am your personal podcast coach, Dave Jackson, thanking you so much for tuning in. If you're new to the show, this is where we talk about all things podcasting, from planning to recording to promoting and all points in between. What I do is I bring my 20 plus years of technical training to the table. We try to eliminate all that jargon and all that just geeked out stuff. You're like, what language is that? We try to make it fun. We try to make it entertaining. I would love to have you in on the conversation. There are a lot of ways you can contact me. You can email me, Dave at schoolofpodcasting.com. You can call in your comments. It's toll free. It's 888-563-3228. Why not program that into your phone? Now, if you got a microphone hooked up, go over to schoolofpodcasting.com. You can click on the voicemail button there on the side. Or if you're more of a typist and you don't feel like firing up the email, just leave a comment on the blog. It's always greatly appreciated. And of course, the School of Podcasting is part of a nutritious breakfast. And we always like to start off the show with kind of a podcast success story. And I just call these Because of My Podcast. And today we've got one from Brian Carruthers, who you can find at the PB&J Network. PBN as in the letter J, N-J. Or you can just go over to Brian Carruthers. I believe it's Carruthers. CARUTHERS.com. And you can find everything I'm talking about today. Just go over to schoolpodcasting.com/367 and check this out. I always say you're the media, and Brian is living proof.
Hey, Dave, this is Brian with a Survival Guide for Christian Men podcast. I've got a quick Because of Podcasting for you. I was recently given 2 free media passes to the upcoming Promise Keepers event in Battle Creek, Michigan, which is right in my backyard. And I will be getting to shake a lot of hands and meet a lot of vendors. And they're trying to get it set up so that I can interview a couple of the speakers, which I'm really hoping comes through. It'll be really awesome. But anyway, I'm hoping it's going to be really great exposure for my podcast. But they sent along an extra pass for my son. He's 13 now. And that'll be really cool. It'll be his first men's ministry event. And he is also a podcaster, so he's going to help me out with some interviews. So if anyone is going to be going to the Battle Creek Promise Keepers event on August 23rd and 24th, I would really love to shake your hand, get to know you. Just go to pbnjnetwork.com/PK, and you'll find out all the information on the event and how to get hold of me while you're at the event. Thanks for your podcast, Dave. It's really awesome. It really helps me out a lot. Keep up the great work.
Brian, thank you so much. You know, it's obvious. It's funny you bring up Promise Keepers. I contacted them earlier in the year. I thought Promise Keepers was dead. Like, I thought they'd been wiped off the planet. And I got a hold of their marketing department and went, hey, you guys keep sending me your newsletter. This would be a great newsletter if I could listen to it in the car. Why don't you let me make it a podcast? And they went, huh? And I keep contacting them going, really? If you want to get the word out about Promise Keepers, create a podcast. You could promote your upcoming events. Why not? Promise Keepers. Hello. They're too busy keeping promises or something. But anyway, when you're there, Brian, if you see any Big Shot Smarty Pants, just say, hey, my brother Dave wants to help you guys make a podcast. One other thing I want to mention here, got an email from a buddy, Kevin Mulrine. He's been on the show. This is the guy that does the Yes Music Podcast. You can find that at, you guessed it, yesmusicpodcast.com. He says, hey, because of my podcast, he's getting ready to do episode number 100. He was one of the people that did my podcast boot camp when I was playing with those. He's actually recorded 103 episodes, but he's getting ready to do his 100th one here And he says, because of my podcast, I've been able to connect with Yes fans across the globe, including places like Latin America, Australia, Indonesia, and Japan. He's interviewed up-and-coming progressive rock bands. He's interviewed book authors and Yes-related website owners. He's interviewed a former live member of the band. He's been able to apply for a press pass for the Yes concert in Birmingham next year. I'll let you know if that comes off. Something tells me it is, man. I got good vibes for you. He's been rated one of the top 20 personality podcasts in the UK in the 2012 European Podcast Awards. Very cool. Because of his podcast, he's been able to start a side career as a professional podcast producer, launching a new education podcast in September. Kevin, very cool, and thanks for sharing your Because of My Podcast story. All right, next up, I want to talk about media kits. This is something I talk about in my book, which you can find over at More Podcast Money, or just search for More Podcast Money at Amazon. And the reason I want to talk about this is because I had one, I'm going to have, I guess you could say, a couple segments, to a certain extent, sponsored by a company called Aphex. Now, what do I mean by this? They're sending me some demo equipment. And I couldn't be able to do this segment in the future without their stuff. Now, I'm going to peel back the curtain a little bit and explain how I did this. Number one, I fell in love with Aphex stuff many moons ago, back in 2006 at one of the original podcast expos. And I loved it. And I don't know what I was watching on YouTube, but all of a sudden, in the sidebar, I saw something for Aphex, blah, blah, blah. And I watched this video, and the guy that was demoing it was called Jace. And I went, okay. And he was showing this stuff. I'm like, man, that stuff is always really, really cool. Nothing against Behringer and DBX, but man, Aphex stuff is like mouth-watering cool. And I went, I would like to spotlight some of that stuff. Yeah, it's a little expensive, but there is that person that occasionally comes up to me and goes, if you had an unlimited budget, what would you buy? And I thought that could be kind of cool to spotlight on the show. So I had a name. I had a name of a product. I looked up their website and said, can I talk to Jace? And they said, yes. Can I ask who's calling? And I'm like, oh, that was easy. But here's the thing. If you don't have the person's name, I've said this before, so I'll say it again. Do not ask for the sales department. They will try to sell you something. That's their job, to sell you stuff. Instead, ask for the marketing department. Their job is to spread the word about their products. And so what I did was I thought, I need a media kit. Because they said, can you send me an email and tell me a little about your show? So they didn't say no, but they're kind of like, meh. So I wanted to come across as professional as I could. Because God bless Steve Jobs, some people think podcasting is amateur hour. And I wanted to show, no, this is an amateur hour. I take this very seriously, as much as I like to have fun and joke around. And so I create a big media kit. So how did I do that? Well, there are a couple things. Number one, they're going to want to know how many people are listening to your podcast. And we'll talk about what do you do if it's 30, right? What do you do? But in my case, and I went out and I did I've been doing research on media kits for about a month now. What I did is I went out to my Lips and Stats and I went to my monthly totals for this year. And I looked and it's January was 11,000, February is 8,000. I'm rounding up here and down. March 9,000, April 10,000. May 8,000, June 7,000. What's up? July, just last month, 9,244 downloads, right? And so far in August, this is August 3rd as I record this, 511. Now, I could, if I wanted to, go back to June of 2011 and say 21,000, but I wanted them to have an accurate idea. And so when I took all those numbers, divided them by the number of months, and then divided them by the number of episodes, which is typically 4, it came out to within a year, you're going to get about 2,000 downloads of an episode for the School of Podcasting. It ranges anywhere from 1,200 per week to about 1,700. And it's interesting because I went and looked at my very first episode of the School of Podcasting way back in 2005. And in June, it was downloaded 22 times. In July, it was downloaded 28 times. And so far in August, it's only been August for 3 days, 2 times. That episode has been downloaded 2,904 times. Now, if I tell a sponsor, hey, yeah, my episodes, yeah, they get about almost 3,000 downloads. That's not lying, right? 2,904 episodes for the first one, but it's not realistic. They're not going to get 3,000 downloads. So in a year, they're going to get 2,000. And then you can see, time goes on, they get a little more. The one thing you need to do here is be brutally honest. And we'll talk about, leading with your best foot forward. But if I were to tell somebody, oh, yeah, I get about 10,000 downloads an episode, right? Let's just inflate the numbers by 5. I get 10,000 downloads. They're like, great. So they pay me basically probably about 5 times as much as I should get. Their return on that investment is nowhere near what they expected. Why? Because your numbers are nowhere near what you told them they were. And what happens? Well, number one, you got a sponsor to sponsor you once. And that's it. They didn't renew because they didn't get their return on investment. And what's worse is not only do they say your show is not worth sponsoring, they might say podcasting is not worth sponsoring. And that's bad. You hurt everybody when you do that. So I got my numbers from Libsyn. I boiled them down, looked at the last year's numbers, and basically I'm averaging about 2,000 downloads an episode. Now, I use a company called Podtrac. And the reason I use Podtrac, it's podtrac.com, is because back in 2005, at the very first New Media Expo, they were there. And I met Mark and the gang and went, okay, cool, yeah, awesome. And they had this free service. Now, you can get the exact same kind of free service from Blueberry. You can also, if you want, go over and there's a plugin for WordPress called Surveys, oddly enough. I've mentioned this before, and you can make your own survey. And some of the questions that they are asking on this survey from Podtrac, and again, I'm going to give you these because you might make your own. The obvious ones. What's your age? What's your gender? What's the highest level of education? What's your total combined income of your household? What is your employment status? What is your marriage status? How many people live in your house? Do you have any children under the age of 18? Do you rent or own? That's the kind of demographic stuff. Podtrac actually goes into a shopping part. Have you shopped online in the last 30 days? How much did you spend? How often do you go to the movies? When did your household last purchase or lease a vehicle? Maybe they have some sort of car sponsor, right? How many credit cards do you own? How much do you spend on computer software in 12 months? They ask about your business. How big is it? What industry is it? What is your job title? What do you do at your job kind of thing? Then they go into the behavior. And this is the part I thought I would share. It was really kind of cool. Do you subscribe to the RSS feed of this show? Well, number one answer is yes. 78% do for this particular podcast. How many episodes of this show have you listened to or watched? Top answer, 72%, 6 or more. I'm sorry, is it? Yeah. How often do you listen to or watch this show? Number one answer, 74%. I always catch each new upload. God bless you people. How much of each episode do you generally listen to or watch? Number one answer, 72%. I always catch the entire episode. Very cool. On average, how many times do you listen to or watch an episode? Number one answer, 1 time. Hey, 1 is all you need, right? How much Dave can you take? How do you most often listen to or watch this podcast? Number one answer, on a portable player, 62%. Followed second by on my computer. Then let's see. How do you? Yeah, we did that one. iTunes is the number one way people are finding it. How do you most often listen to or watch the show? Again, it's, a cell phone or an iPod, 46%, followed by an iPod, followed by a PC laptop, and then Zune. There you go. So that's that. And then they get into, what do you like about the show, what do you dislike? But really, the demographics is what a lot of people are looking for. Age, sex, how much money do they make? Do they run their own? They want to know kind of who they're looking at because they know who their target market is. And so those are some things that you can actually put. If you want to make your own kind of survey, those are some things you can look for. Now, what I would do, I would ask, what was the last thing you purchased online? That might be a one-question survey because that will give you an idea of what your audience is buying. Then go see if there's a product that you use that you can talk about honestly and that your audience is also purchasing. And then approach them to see if you would, if they would like to sponsor the show. So those are some things you can ask on a media kit. In my case, I just put their age, their make, their household income, and where they were located. I think that's all I put. So I had my stats and the information that I just gave you. So you can get as in-depth or not as you want. So I sent that over. Hey, Jace, great talking to you on the phone. Would really love to, because he said, we've got this thing, and that thing. And I said, great. If you ship them to me all at once, I'll do one a week. Or if you want, I can do a whole show. But I said, I think it would be better for you, because again, I'm trying to get him to give me stuff. So I think it would be better for you if I do one a week, because that'll keep the Aphex name out there. Great. He's not paying me to do this, by the way. And I sent him a link to my website, a link to my YouTube channel, which you can find at schoolofpodcasting.com/DaveTube. And I sent him my media kit. And I'm going to say in 10 minutes, I got a phone call from somebody at Aphex that said, Dave, we got your thing. Oh, and I also said, here's the thing. If you need a credit card to hold, because there are people that, let's face it, want a demo. That's great. And they never ship it back. And that hurts the company. It also hurts podcasting. And I said, if you guys, you don't know me, you just met me. If you guys want a credit card to hold while I have your equipment, I don't have a problem with that. Great. So I think it was Joanne called me up. Dave, we checked out your site. You've been approved for this, and that. But if you don't mind, we wouldn't mind having a credit card on hold. Not a problem. Here's my credit card, blah, blah, blah. Boom. That call came within about 10 to 15 minutes from the time I sent them the email. And I think some of it had to do with the fact of that media kit. They saw exactly who and where and what, because I said the podcast is about podcasting. My audience is made up of people who do typically audio recording. So they're like, wow, there's our target audience. Here's how much they spend, blah, blah, blah. My phone rang, and in the future, you'll hear about Aphex. Now, you're like, great, Dave. I don't have big numbers. What do I do? Now, obviously, your podcast media kit should always have a description of what your podcast is. Explain that it's a weekly or bi-weekly, whatever it is. Tell them about your podcast. Include your album artwork. Include your website. Things like that. Let's go. I'm going to do this live. The one podcast that I do, it's not pod faded. I just do about one a month. Is a podcast I do called Feeding My Faith. It's just my take on God, basically. No religion, my take on God. And so if I look at the stats for that, and again, I'm not going to make this a bunch, but just to give you an example, 90, 146, 251, 209. 112, 112, 214, 305, 161, 132. Those are my download numbers for that podcast. Now here's what I could do. Again, you don't want to mislead people, but I could say the Feeding My Faith podcast has been downloaded 4,269 times. And then I could say it consists of X amount of episodes, 20. And then let them do the math. That's one of the things you can do. Again, don't want to mislead. I'm not going to lie. But I can say it's been downloaded 4,269 times. And then let them ask, well, how much is that per episode? Then you go, Let me bust out the calculator. 4,269 divided by 20 is 213 times an episode. So they might go, And I go, but let me tell you about this. And for the record, I wouldn't be looking for sponsors if I had 213 downloads. I'm going to think at least 1,000. But that's just me. That doesn't mean you can't make money with a small audience. But how do I now sell this if you really want to sponsor? Well, number one, you can start talking about the advantage of podcasting. What you want to research. There's a company called Edison, and they do a report every year on kind of the state of podcasting. And they've said that 71% of podcast listeners will visit a sponsor's website. Wouldn't that get your attention if you're a sponsor? 40% purchased a product. 37% have used a promotional code. And depending on what you listen to, they're saying now that approximately 70 million people have listened to a podcast. It's up around 30%. Okay? You can say that the awareness of podcasting has doubled since 2006. Because in 2006, it was 11%. And now in 2010, which is where I got this stat, 23%. Might even actually be higher than that. You can quote the strength of podcasting as a whole. You can show how it's growing. You can show the fact that unlike radio, podcast listeners are committed to that topic. They've already gone out. They've downloaded the show. They had to take action to hear it, right? So there's a high degree of connection to the material. And Leo Laporte at New Media Expo said, you need to treat your audience as an intelligent consumer. And you need to vary your message. And by doing that, it keeps the level of interest high. And you have to explain to them that a radio, this Sunday kind of advertising probably isn't going to work on a podcast because it's more of a discussion. I'll put a link out in the show notes. And again, you can find this at schoolofpodcasting.com/367. There are some free Media Kit templates that you can look at. So you can do that. The other thing you can do is you can put in about, we talked about putting in a description about the podcast. You can also put in a description about the host. You can also say, here's what our listeners are saying. And then put in quotes from your iTunes reviews. If they're all positive, you could say, have received over 110 reviews in podcast. Average rating is 4.7 stars out of 5. Chris Christensen from the Amateur Traveler podcast, he did the thing that I mentioned. You lead with the big number, right? So when he has a really great looking media kit. 1.2 million Amateur Traveler downloads. That's the audio. 219,000 of Amateur Traveler video. 95,000 This Week in Travel, totaling 1.5 million downloads in 2011. Right? Very, very cool stuff. I did look at it if you're interested. In terms of what are people charging, Grape Radio, which has been a top-rated podcast since 2006, they get 125,000 downloads per episode. 125,000 downloads per episode. They charge $104 CPM. So basically, they're charging $1,300 an episode. That would be nice. I saw, for whatever reason, a lot of people will give you the download numbers. Like there's a media kit for Golf Smarter. They said 112,000 downloads per month, by the way, not per episode. Then you have to figure out how many episodes they do a month. I saw people that said you can, very spatial media kit said it's $250 an episode. They didn't tell you how many downloads per episode, though. They just said, we've been totally downloaded X amount of time. So that would be like me again saying, I've been downloaded for the School of Podcasting 867,125 times. Well, that's over, 8 years. So, but, depending on how you want to do that, there was that one. What else do we have here? Indie Traveler was another one, $350, but it didn't say how many downloads you get. And they may want to know your downloads. I've had one sponsor that didn't ask. They wanted my target market. I gave them a price and they said, absolutely, here it is. And there you go. So those are some tips for the media kit. The other thing you want to do is you want to make it look good. You want to paint yourself in the best light that you can. You can do something in like Microsoft Word and then save it as a PDF. Is almost all the media kits I found were in a PDF. Some people prefer to put this stuff as a page on their website. You could, and then send a link. The nice version of that is you can update your media kit, save the website page as the same name. So let's say it's schoolofpodcasting.com/media, right? And you send people to that, and then later you update your pricing. When people go to your email to look at your media kit, they're going to go right back to your website and see your updated pricing. I kind of get that. I also know most people are looking for a PDF because that seems to be the format of choice. I looked at quickanddirtytips.com. Again, same thing. They led with a big number, 3.2 million downloads a month. They charge $40 CPM. Do the math on that. That means that network is making $112,000 a month. Pretty cool. Yeah, 2.8 million downloads. What did I say earlier? 2.8 million downloads and $40 CPM. $112,000, I believe, is what that calculates to. And then they went into how big their website is growing. So this is where, if you're using, I use HostGator, you can go into your cPanel and look at your AW stats, and you can see how many visitors you have. Now, do not get excited when you see hits. If you look at your stats in whoever your web host is, that's usually AW stats or some sort of stats, you will see hits. Let me explain hits versus visits. If I send you to a website of mine and I have 3 pictures on it, and you go to that one website one time, I have 1 visitor, I have 3 hits, because each image will count as a hit. So hits, basically, between you and me, nobody cares about. It's an insane number. It's like trying to tell time in seconds. You know, it's 4,642 seconds past noon. That's just not going to work. And so consequently, people count visitors, and they're actually looking for unique visitors in some cases, because there are people like you that you go back to your website every day. So that means there's 30 visits that are you. They want unique visitors. So they might want that number. And again, you can go in and take screenshots. You can actually do an alt print screen on most computers. I'm not sure how you do it on a Mac. If you're using Windows 7, go down to the start button and type in the word snip. There's actually a snippet tool, and you can actually just draw on your screen, and it will take a screenshot of just whatever it is you're looking at. And then just paste that into a Microsoft Word document or a Google document, whatever you're using. That's another way you can make things into a PDF. Google Docs are free. And then when you're done, just say, save this as a download as a PDF. Boom, there's your PDF. Free. Didn't cost you a thing. And then what a lot of people do, and this is my own personal preference, your price is your price is your price. And a lot of people say, hey, we get this many downloads, call for pricing. That personally, for me, drives me crazy. If it's a price, put it there. To me, that's like going to a car dealership that says low financing, whatever, and you can't find the price, and you've got to get a salesman who then has to go ask your manager, which to me sounds like the price might change based on how business is going for the month. That's my own personal baggage. So consequently, that's why my pricing is on everything I do. But if you're a person that would rather talk to the person, size them up, and figure out how much you should charge them, by all means, put your phone number, put your email address, and whatever you do, whatever phone number you use, whatever email you use, make sure those are things that you check on a regular basis. Make sure that phone rings. Don't give out a Google Voice number that then goes to voicemail. Have it go to your phone, because if they're calling you, they are hot and ready to go. They're interested. Have that go to a phone where you can actually answer it. One other thing I want to talk about when we talk about painting yourself in the best light that you can, one of the, I was on a website, it might have been Odesk or something like that, where people hire consultants. And I saw where the Reach Out Job Search podcast was searching for somebody to go out and basically do sales calls. And I went over and looked at their media kit. And they said in February 2011, they had almost 200 live listeners. They use the dreaded
Blog Talk Radio.
And in March 2011, they had 86. Wait a minute. So from February to March, you lost half your listeners. And the trend continued downward on their media kit. Likewise, their download numbers had fallen off from 10,000 to 239.
Oh, that's not one of our top answers.
10,230, not 239,000. No, 239. I'm going to say that that's not going to inspire me to put money in your podcast. So the other thing you want to do, obviously, make your website look as good as you can. You know, make sure it's not too cluttered. Make sure you have the best audio quality you can. Listen to this podcast. You guys hear me talk about Blog Talk Radio. Here's why I hate to beat this dead horse, but listen to this.
Blog Talk Radio.
Ah, yes, the infamous words from hell.
And welcome to ROJS Radio Live. This is ROJS Radio Replay Thursdays, where we replay some of our greatest shows over the last 2 years. We are on
now, I need to let you know, I'm not doing anything to make her distorted. That's just the way she is. And I just want to let you know that they are playing the greatest hits of this. So I want to play you I'm going to fast forward just a little bit here.
In regards to interviews anywhere on the planet.
Here we go.
ROJS Radio Live. So let's go ahead. Let's do this.
Now, I'm not going to adjust this audio. That's some good stuff right there. Now, I want you to think like a sponsor, right? And I'll turn this down. You know, you have X amount of budget. You want to get the word out to your target audience. And this is what you hear. So you got to make your audio sound as good as it can. However, whatever your budget will, allow. That's what I always tell people. Yes, the high LPR 40 is a great microphone. But some people don't have $300-400 for a microphone. That's where you can get the Audio-Technica ATR 2100. You can find that at schoolofpodcasting.com/2100. It's like $40, $35, something like that. The price keeps getting lower. I just know.
And welcome to the best in nationwide political sanity talk with ROJS Radio Live, featuring the music of Last Wish, Angels to Ashes, the Sanity Crew of Monica R.W., Automatic.
All right, I think we've heard enough of that. And I appreciate her energy. I just would go, really? Featuring the music that sounds like, I don't know, somebody frying bacon underwater. I'm just saying. So let's kind of wrap this up. I realized in going through this, I was kind of all over the place. I explained how I got someone interested in my website. I explained how I went to Libsyn. By the way, I keep saying Libsyn like you may or may not know what that is. Libsyn is a media host. It's libsyn.com. That's who this particular podcast is hosted through for just my media. My website is through a company called HostGator, which you can find at schoolofpodcasting.com/hosting. Also with Libsyn, if you want a free month, use the coupon code SOPFREE at Libsyn, not at the School of Podcasting. That coupon is for Libsyn. So I kind of talked about that. That's where I got my download stats. And you can make your own survey because potential sponsors are going to want to know who is listening, who is watching your show. Then when you get numbers, lead with the big ones, but do not lie. If you want to, in some cases, not divulge all the information, that is your choice. So if you want to say, this is how many total downloads I have, and then let them figure out how many that is per episode, that's one way to do it. I'm more of an upfront person. I'd rather just say, look, this is what you're getting. That way nobody has any surprises. When they go, what? That's per episode? I'm also, for me personally, I'm a big fan of just putting the price on your media kit. because to me, when I see no price, that means you're willing to haggle. And that's another tip that I didn't mention earlier. Almost all these media kits, many of them have, for one episode, it's X amount of money. For 4 episodes, there's a 15%. Let me turn off my stupid mixer here. I'm leaving that in. That's my chat window. That means somebody's on my website. You might have 1 episode is X amount of money. 4 episodes is, a 15% discount. And then the other thing I've seen a lot of people do is that you can sponsor the podcast. You can sponsor us by putting a banner ad on the website. You can sponsor us by putting a message in our email list. And you can get a free email list over at MailChimp. Go over to schoolofpodcasting.com/MailChimp. The cool thing is there, you're giving them options. Would you like A, B, or C? And you notice none of those options is none of the above.
Oh, that's not one of our top answers.
Right? And then what you can do is say, well, here, if you ordered these separately, they would cost you $8,000. But now, if you order sponsoring in the podcast and the website and the newsletter, we'll throw in these Ginsu knives. Or not. Satisfaction guaranteed. Buy now.
And now it's time for a Last 5 and 5. What were the last 5 podcasts you listened to?
Hey, Dave, it's Ilene from the Miss Ilene Speaks podcast, which can be found at missilenespeaks.com. And I called in to give you my last 5 in 5. And this 5 focuses on the more feminine side of podcasting. And I want to start off with The Feed. And that's the new podcast from Libsyn and Elsie Escobar, which I think is fantastic. I'm so glad that Libsyn has a podcast going now. Another new one that I found is called Shoot the Smit. And that's with Amy Schmittauer, who's pretty big on YouTube. She does Savvy, Sexy, Social. And she has a YouTube channel that's pretty popular. Now, the next one is another Amy, and that's my girl Amy Porterfield from the Online Marketing Made Easy podcast. She talks a lot about social media, which is a good segue over into so Pinteresting from Cynthia Sanchez. She's definitely focused on social media and most of all, Pinterest. And my last 5 is probably the one that I've been listening to the longest, and that's the Tips Tuesday podcast with Mayanna Stevenson from Blogade. So that's my roundup on my last 5 and 5. I hope you like the kinder, gentler side of podcasting. I'll talk to you soon, Dave. Peace.
Miss Ilene, thank you so much for leaving that. She left that in via SpeakPipe. And again, it's not a right or wrong kind of answer. It's, hey, what were the last 5 podcasts you listened to? And she always brings great content. You can find her again over at missilenespeaks.com.
Thicken up your skin and get ready for a supersized serving of opinion. Delivering constructive criticism and powerful praise, it's the Podcast Review Show.
Bring the funny or something or entertaining.
Holy crap.
I think I admit stuff on my podcast. Forget about it.
Horrible.
But the fact that you made me wait 3.5 minutes to know what's going on.
Horrible.
People pay with money and time, and their most prized possession is their attention. And 3 minutes is a lifetime.
This is the podcast that takes the guesswork out of first-time impressions.
Okay, great.
But it's going to sound like caca poo-poo. What do you think of their audio?
Good.
Good? Okay. All right. That's why I like you here. You don't have that podcaster audio snob mentality here. They don't pull any punches on this podcast.
You'll discover new podcasts while learning podcasting tips.
If they find you in iTunes even, they're going to see you before they hear you. So you should have a decent logo, and they do. I'm thinking just wacky, lots of sound effects. It's the Monkey Radio Hour. I would tune out at this point because...
Horrible.
We are now at 5 minutes into the podcast. We have yet to get any real content. Would you listen to another episode of this?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm going to say I'm subscribed. I'm like, okay, you have my attention.
If you'd like to get reviewed, go to podcastreviewshow.com/review me.
We have another 45 minutes to listen to this.
No, I'm checking out.
Join in on the conversation via voicemail, email, comments, and polls. It's all at our website, podcastreviewshow.com.
All right, next up, the star of the show, that would be you. Your podcast questions via email, voicemail. And we're going to start off with Bill Hutchinson. It says, Dave, you might want to use this as an example for the SOP. Bill does the YWAM podcast at YWAMpodcast.com. And I reviewed that on the podcast review show. And he said, after taking about a month to organize a Skype interview, so think about that. For a month, you chase down a guest. I finally conducted the interview on Monday. I use a free Skype recorder called MP3 Skype Recorder and have conducted a few interviews using it for the podcast. Do we know where this is going to end? This is kind of like one of those stories where it starts off with, well, we thought we'd do a shot of Jaeger. You just kind of know that story's going to end poorly, right? Poor Bill. The recording software plugin separates the recording so that I'm on the left channel and the others are on the right. I found the past that this works out really well for post-production. It does. It's awesome, right? I love it. And I use a program called PowerGrammo that does that. So everything seemed to go well during the interview, and it was full of useful information. I've heard this story 4,000 times, and okay. Unfortunately, when I reviewed the recording, though, it was garbled from about the 13-minute point on. My Skype connection stayed pretty good the whole way through, and because I couldn't monitor the actual recording, I had no idea it was messed up until after I had disconnected. So, what is he talking about? Well, listen to this recording.
Sorry, I should have actually said when we first connected. We've been recording since we connected.
Great.
And then what I do is I'll take that recording and then I'll just cut it up.
Yes. Been there, done that. And that's why I don't use free software. Not that paid software will always work, but, you can't ask for your money back. You have no leverage with these people, right? So, I use a program called PowerGrammo, and I always use my portable recorder to record the episode as well, so I have a backup. And how I do this is I take a cable that has male on both ends, an 1/8 inch or 3.5 millimeter, whichever one we do, a headphone jack, basically. And I plug it into the headphones and then plug the other end into the line in of my recorder, and then I plug my headphones in. Now, you have to press record to hear this, but what I hear is exactly what I'm getting then. And then I use, like I said, PowerGrammo to record as well. Now, PowerGrammo does the left-right split, which I do love, which the recorder does not. But nonetheless, you can then adjust your volumes on Skype to make sure that they're as loud as you are, and that always is my backup. So I'm sorry to hear that, buddy. Thank you for passing it along. And again, it's just another great example of why free is not really free. He paid with time, and some might say with his reputation, but that's, I think most people understand computers are computers and those are going to happen, but it is a pain in the butt, especially if you chase this person down for a month. So better luck in the future there, buddy, and keep on keeping on. Find him again over at YWAMpodcast.com. All right, next up, remember how I say you get to understand your listener better? In some cases, that might be your customer, because you get feedback. Well, I got feedback. This is from Karen Thompson, and she's talking about the interview with Eric K. Johnson, the podcast talent coach. And you can find him over at Eric K. Johnson, or you can find him over at Podcast Talent Coach. Very nice guy, very knowledgeable about content. And he has a video about how marketing to men and marketing women should be different. And Karen would like to voice her opinion that she disagrees. So, Karen, take it away.
Dave, this is Karen Thompson. I wanted to share a little bit about a part of your show yesterday that kind of really struck me as interesting. And recently I've read Lean In, which is a book by Sheryl Sandberg, who, is making gabillions for Facebook. she really pushes the thought process for women and about women, regarding how they are approaching work, etc., and really pushing themselves to expand and not limit themselves. And she talks not only to women, but also to men about how, it's really important for them to kind of encompass and share that conversation with them and hopefully, help to lift them up and see that, they are really capable of so much more. And I guess what struck me in the conversation that you had yesterday with, one of the coaches regarding talent was, he automatically degraded the way we approach a problem based on sex. And I just thought it was very interesting is, he believes that, first of all, men only approach it one certain way that was very, in his description, sort of cavemanish. And women only approach it one way, which was a much more nurturing, looking at the core of the issue and trying to, massage the issue until they've solved it. And I guess what I want to point out is that people in general approach problems different ways. Doesn't matter what your sex is. It just, when we talk about problems and how we approach them, sometimes it's worth evaluating. It doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man, and saying, okay, are you overanalyzing the problem and you just need to tackle the issue and not overthink it? Or at times, are you tackling the issue too quick, not thinking through it at all, and you still end up having the same core of issue? And so I just wanted to point out, it really doesn't matter who you are. We all approach problems in a different way, and sometimes we need to adjust our approach. And, it's definitely worth taking a look at and thinking a little bit about, how are you tackling things? The last thing I wanted to say is, Dave, I've been downloading your podcast for probably the past 2 or 3 months. Really good. It's just, you've got great content, great inspiration. You're definitely pushing me towards working towards my project and getting that released, and I'll share more about that as I get closer. But, if you're out there listening to this podcast, I can tell you, I have experience in WordPress. I have experience in social media. And, what they are talking about on here is really developing your content and sharing your message with your people and having a conversation, which Dave does great. So thank you very much, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
Karen, thank you so much. She did that. That's from SpeakPipe. If you have a microphone plugged in, you can join in on the conversation. I think what Eric is talking about here is, and I can understand completely why, if we make that an absolute that all men do this and all women do that, yeah, that would be offensive because we all are different. Absolutely. I know I get offended here in Cleveland. There's a hairdressing place called Lady Jane's, and it's for men. You go in and you pick your hairstylist by their picture, right? And then it's nothing but foosball. And every like barber chair has a TV in front of it that has sports, and it's it's just all apparently all men do is play foosball and watch sports. That's it. I'm like, wow, I find that kind of offensive. We're so very cavemanish, as she said. So yeah, I don't think we're going with stereotypes there, and I realize stereotypes can be kind of explosive at times. But there you go. If you want to check him out, go over to Podcast Talent Coach. And thank you for your feedback. Next up, had a question on the School of Podcasting forums, basically, for lack of a better phrase. This is from John, who does Let's Reverse Obesity at letsreverseobesity.com. Was looking for a PayPal donation widget. And I want to point out that many moons ago, I used to use a service called Chipin at chipin.com. And went over to see how things are at chipin.com because it was interesting because this website was free. They helped you collect money and took absolutely nothing for it. And I'm like, that's an odd business model. You help me do something and charge me nothing for it. Well, as of March 7th, 2013, yeah, they're done. They're out of business. They merged with some other company, proving once again that if you don't charge any money for your business and you get nothing in return, typically you go out of business. It's hard to pay the bills with a smile. So, John was looking for, on some of my websites, I have this widget where people can donate. And he said, hey, it doesn't hurt, right? You can put it on there, see what happens. I get a decent the occasional donation on my Logical Weight Loss podcast. So here's how you do this. If you go into your PayPal account, in the upper right-hand corner, do a search for the word widgets. And now this particular widget, I was emailed from PayPal saying, we're not going to use this anymore, but it's still available at this point as of August 2013. And you can always Google, PayPal widget, something like that. Be careful with that because it's PayPal and somebody might try to swipe your info here. But you can go in and you basically set the color, you set the image, you set the color of your progress bar, et cetera, et cetera. And when you get done, you say copy and paste, and it will put that on the website. Now, that's via PayPal. That's why that works. And PayPal used to have, it's actually part of PayPal called PayPal Labs, where they have all these widgets. But I got an email saying, we're not going to carry this widget anymore. And according to John, yes, they still do. So if you want to check that out, like I said, I'll put a link to this out in the show notes where I have the directions. But if you want a widget that shows, basically you could say, like on the Logical Weight Loss podcast, I say my goal was $240 for the year. And as people donate, it shows how far along the goal we are. So thank you, John, for the question. All right, last up, I wanted to just give a shout out to all my new buddies for everybody that went to How to Podcast and signed up for the first Start a Podcast in 6 weeks class. There is a new one coming up in August, at the end of August, if you're interested. Did I say August? I meant September. Start September 14th. If you're interested in that, go over to howtopodcast.com. And it was so awesome that, we had Andrew from across the pond. It was 5 o'clock he lives near London. And here it is Saturday at noon our time. And he's sitting there. We finally at the end figured out how to turn on our webcams to where we could do that. And I'm using GoToWebinar for this. And one of the podcasts is going to be about the headstone industry, tombstones, for lack of a better phrase. And I was like, woo, that is niche, buddy. And the beautiful thing about that, this is hard to do. When you put in a term for a podcast and you can't find any, I'm like, well, the good news is you're going to be the immediate expert. So that's going to be interesting. He's going to create a podcast about that industry. So I'm really looking forward to that. A lot of great things. I'll be telling you more about them as they go forth, but it's great. One of the things they say about podcasting is the fact that you get to learn your audience and things of that nature. And it was just great to meet them live. And if you want to meet me live, I am going to New Media Expo in January next year. Looking forward to seeing Mike Russell and Isabella and Cliff Ravenscraft. I'm looking forward to seeing Daniel J. Lewis and Ray Ortega and all the gang and you, hopefully. But looking forward to heading to Vegas in January. And the only thing that I regret about my How to Podcast class, if you find that over at howtopodcast.com, podcasting in 6 weeks, is the fact that it's one of those cases, if you give people too many choices, they get confused. So I'm going to talk about this a little bit. If you want to learn self-by-self tutorials, just go over to schoolofpodcasting.com, click on the Join Now button, and you can learn at your own pace. The 6 weeks to start a podcast class, I need to come up with the official name of that. Just go to howtopodcast.com. It'll take you right there. That is basically group coaching for 6 weeks. You and a group of folks walk through the entire process. It's the same material that's covered in the School of Podcasting. You just do it live with me. So if you want that live interaction, the ability to ask questions, we got done today and it was rapid fire questions. It was great. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. It was awesome. Now, if you want a speedier approach, you can actually hire me as a consultant. One-on-one, we'll sit down and go over anything you need to do. And sometimes that's actually quicker as opposed to the 6 weeks thing or going through the tutorials. It's like I can figure out where you're at, find out what you need, and just say, here's what you need to do. And in many cases, I'll just do it for you and then say, here you go. It's done. Here's how you take it from here. So whatever you want to do, if you're looking to start a podcast, you can do that. The other thing I want to point out is the Quick Start program. Still live and well. Somebody said, are you still doing that? I'm like, I never stopped. This is if you don't have a website at all, you just have the idea for a podcast. What you can do is send me an email with the phrase Quick Start in the subject line. I will send you a link for your web hosting. I will earn a commission on that. My way of saying thank you, I will then, you will forward your email that you get from the web hosting company to me. I'll go over, install WordPress, and install all the plugins. And then as another way of saying thank you to you, I will give you a free month at the School of Podcasting. So what happens is you spend whatever, $8 on web hosting and $10 on a domain, and you get a free month at the School of Podcasting, plus your website gets set up. Now, you do have to supply the graphics and obviously the content, but it's basically set to go. And you then get a month at the School of Podcasting because you're like, great, I have a website. I have no idea what to do with it. You can watch the tutorials. It'll walk you right through it. So that's what's going on at the School of Podcasting. And I look forward to working with you with whatever capacity you choose. If you're looking to start a podcast, it is the place where everything you need to launch a podcast is there. So thank you so much for tuning in. And if you would like to join in on the conversation, if you have a suggestion for a future show, just email me, dave@schoolofpodcasting.com. You can call in your comments. It's toll free, courtesy of podcastvoicemail.com. It's 888-563-3228. You can also use the voicemail button out at the website, just like we had today with Kern, and just leave it that way. Or if you just want to type on the blog, you can do that as well. I look forward to hearing from you. And let me remind you that it is time to start living a life worth podcasting about. Wish me luck. I'm going to my 30-year high school reunion, which means I'm old. And that's going to be something to talk about living a life worth podcasting about. It's going to be interesting to see who has and who hasn't tonight. And more importantly, who still has hair. I do. It's gray, but it's on my head. So thank you so much for listening. We'll see you again real soon with another episode of the School of Podcasting's morning announcements. Don't be tardy. See you on the inside. God bless. Take care. See you next week.